Hi, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Okay, so we're doing something we've never actually done on the blog before, but a really good place to start. We have a pair of trousers here that we know fits lovely, but I don't know how bad you can see that. Yeah, it's because I like to wear my trousers quite long, and then, yeah, okay, so it's my own issue really. Now, when we cut them to make the pattern, we really need to cut as close to this seam as possible. I wouldn't bother unpicking the seam, I'd just, as close as possible. Okay, so from my fabric, I've cut a waistband already. That can go to the side. Now, I'm using the overlocker just for pure convenience, and I've laid out one leg, which is half of the garment, and I've given myself a hem allowance as well. Now I just need to do the fly area, the zip at the front, and what I also then need to do is, with this curb, fold that round, and then I can sew on this. So make it as big as possible to give myself hem allowance. In fact, what I might do is use the curb and then sew these two together. Now, I haven't sewn down the middle strip. There's no pleating or anything in the middle strip, so I haven't worried about cutting it. And yeah, if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. It's that simple. So let's put those safely away, and I can get rid of my pattern, for want of a better word, and I'll be using that again. So yeah, and you can really see the difference from the front and the back now. So whereas when I've made pyjamas, oh excuse me, or lounge pants, I haven't really worried about that. So I'm just going to take one of these with my overlocker from the bottom and then sew up to the top. So yeah, very, very simple. Very simple indeed. So, as they are slightly different, I need to line up these two at the top, and I need to adjust it while I sew. So if there's any gathers, then I will put them at the back of the knee. But because we have such a long piece of fabric to work with, what I'm going to do is I have the bottom tight and I have the top loose. So I'm not going to gather, but I am going to pick up some of this excess fabric. So, and then it is just literally a matter of sewing to the top. Of course, just keeping an eye on your legs really, and making sure that we've got both bits of fabric, and also making sure that we're not picking up anything from behind, which does happen, you know, it just really does. Now I do need to do both of these legs, but whereas I need one left and one right, what I'm going to do from this one is I'm going to start from the top so that I know that I have matching legs, as it were. The other way to do it is I have the larger line on the top this side. If I put the larger line on the bottom, then I can then sew. This is just because the fabric doesn't have a left or right. On more complicated garments you will see me literally mark an arrow, and that means that it's the right side. So now I know that I've got one left leg and one right leg. I have to join the legs together, again making sure that I meet up, and whereas I had the bottom tight and the top loose, I now have my top tight and my bottom line loose. So if I hold it up in an angle, and I'm literally just trusting the machine to sew now, and I am not forcing it to take more fabric from the bottom than the top, but I kind of am. So now that I've picked up all my gathers, I can just continue sewing. So let's get this all out of the machine. Just separate them. Now I do need to put a zip in the front. So I am going to stop at this corner here, and then this is all for my zip. So, and it's up to you whether you start from that point or you stop from that point. So I've got them now, and I can see clearly that the top of my legs are the right way round. So I'm now going to start sewing. I'm going to make sure that the seam hits each other so they're perfectly in line, and then I'm going to follow up the two lines that run along the back. Managed to pull it out slightly, sorry about that. Yeah, it's literally the weight of the garment, you know. So that's it. I've now done the majority of the sew. I can get rid of my overlocker, and I'm now going on to my sewing machine. So now the first job I need to do is I need to sew this zip in. Now the reason I'm sewing it in now is so that it is nice and fitted, ready for the waistband, so I can tuck my loose ends in. So what I've got here is the front of the garment. I'm going to place my zip in the hole that is pre-cut, and I am sewing so that it folds open. Now I actually salvaged this zip from the pair of trousers, and it is a case of, well, why not? You know, if you don't have one and you have one, the bin men are not going to complain if I take the zip off, and the zip is functional and everything else like that. So now I've got it lined up and ready to sew. Of course I'm going to sew till I hit the zip, as it were, the zip head. I've lifted my foot and I'm now going to close this. And it's not easy, it never is. You know, just give yourself room to breathe, really. And then I can continue sewing. But the reason I do that is so that I've got a nice smooth line. Okay, so that's firmly on there. Now I need to do the same to the other side. So I'm going to line these up at the top. I'm going to open my zip. I'm going to place it under the machine. Now it's really up to you whether you're happy doing it without a zipper foot or with a zipper foot. I can't say. Yeah, I can't advise you. If you have a zipper foot, use a zipper foot. It's that simple. So now I've closed my zip. I'm just making sure it's all lined up and the bottom bit is not folding over. So, okay, yeah, it's a bit fiddly, but it's fine. So there we are. The zip is in place. We're going to tidy up the top when we do the hem, the waistband. Now it's really up to you whether you put some stitches along there just to keep it nice and tidy. We do have this, which is the flap that just covers the zip. So all I need to do is lay these two together. I just curve that round and turn it inside out. So I can leave the top open, and it's really up to you whether you sew it all the way around and then turn it all inside out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push my fingers in there, and then I can just top stitch this. So, but you know, there are easier ways to do this. Just being silly, really. Okay, and you could give yourself a bigger bit of material than this as well. So that's all lined up. I just make sure the bottom's tidy and that I've got enough material to actually go through the machine. In fact, I think I'll come back to that because I'm going to give myself a bigger bit of material. So that's that done, and what I'm now going to do is I'm going to pick this up and I'm just going to continue this seam so that it meets the zip. So just a couple of stitches and then we can move on to the waistband. Now when I cut the waistband, I literally cut it as one continuous strip. So I know it's far too big, but that's fine. I now have the back of the garment. I now have the strip of fabric. I'm going to fold that over just to keep it tidy. So the zip is folded over under here. And line it up in the machine. If I need 2 goes to get it under that foot, then I take 2 goes. And then this is quite simple, really. I can see the edge of this fabric. I'm going to untuck my bobbin thread. Gosh, we're back to the beginning quite quickly there. That was a bit of a surprise. So, I am literally now sewing up to the zip and making sure that that's all tucked in nicely. A couple of reverse stitches. So, we now know how much we've got excess of this waistband, which was literally a complete ream cut. I can now cut that off and I can put that in my scrap pile. So I'm now turning the whole garment inside out. Now it's really up to you. We can put a strip of interfacing in there. It does make it slightly easier to sew. I'm not, but you know, that's fine. What I am going to do is I am going to make a fold, one single fold in here, and I am going to sew this. This is just going to make it easier for me to keep it nice and tidy. Lovely, that's done. So this is just the top of the waistband, because when I fold this over, I want it to be as neat as possible. And now I'm going to take the width of the waistband and then fold it over again. So what I'm kind of left with is a W, a sort of W. And when I'm happy, I can now place that under the machine. So yes, it is a matter of folding and keeping tidy. So I'm going to put a couple of stitches in here just so that I can work with the fabric. I'm going to do another fold, and I'm going to keep an eye on this, because what I want to do is I want to make sure that all my scraggy little zip end things are all tucked under. Now on modern sewing machines and modern zips, if you sew over the plastic part of this zip, it's going to be fine. If you sew over the metal ends, the rivets, then you're going to break your needle. Now you're not going to break your machine or anything, but you are going to actually break your needle. And well, I don't know, you know, sometimes they sort of fly right across the room, and it really is quite scary. And I think I'd look silly if I was wearing safety goggles to sew. So now that I've done all my yucky bits, and I've got that as tidy as I can, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to truss the cut of the fabric. I am folding half an inch, and I am sewing on that previous line of stitches. But what I am going to be careful to do is not to pull this so that it twists. So I'm just going to make sure that this is straight from now. And I can do that by placing my hand over it. And all I'm doing, and you can pin this if you like, is I am sewing this sort of 7 inches here, and then I'm stopping the machine and I'm adjusting it again. So yeah, also I'm making sure that I haven't got anything tucked under the teeth or anything. Now I'm coming up to the seam. Now in a way I want to push this seam flat. It's the only way I can describe it, and by doing that then I'll get a nice line from the garment. If there's a pucker there, then it will just drape funny. So, done my adjust, sew for a bit, keeping an eye that I haven't pulled or twisted my waistband. It looks slightly twisted when you're actually sewing. Okay. So I'm coming up to the end now, and what I'm doing is I'm sewing up to a point, and then I'm going to work on the end. So let's get that tidy. Lovely. So what I need to do now is I need my zip tucked in, and I need this folded over. I need this folded in half, and I need this seam folded in as well. So there's quite a lot to do. If I make sure that this angle is right angles, then that's fine. So that's that side done. Give myself a bit more fabric actually. Lovely. So we've got that there. We've got that folded over, so that's quite simple. We've then got that folded over, that's quite simple. We've got this line straight, and we're going to fold that over, and then we're going to fold this pretty much in half, and then we're going to tuck that in. So now that I'm sure everything is lined up, I'm going to stick a pin in it, and I'm going to seal this end here. This is the top of my waistband, and I'm going to get that sealed. So I'm still top stitching, which is quite nice, so I can see what I'm doing. I can get rid of this pin, and I'm holding it firmly with this finger. And this finger rather than that finger, because, you know, that does sort of whack you and can make you jump. So I'm just turning it now. I've got everything where it should be. I'm going to do a couple of stitches just 100% sure that it's in place, and then I'm going to adjust this last bit here. So again, I'm folding over the waistband and I'm sewing on that previous line of stitches. Lovely. Okay, so excluding putting the button on and the other bit, we'll do the flap now. So what I need now is I'm going to take this piece of cloth from my waistband, and I'm going to use the garment just to line this up. I'm going to put the buttonhole side under just so it's out of the way, and I need from the waistband to sew down so it covers the join of the zip. I know the shape is curved at the bottom and then straight up. Lovely. So that's what I'm left with on the rough side. Okay. Now I don't need to leave a hole to turn it inside out because I've got the top. I'm just literally following the outer line here. Okay, I've got sharp corner, always with the sharp corner, sew it sharp, and then I'm coming up the long side here. Oh, that's a bit cruel, isn't it? I don't think I can really get away with this actually. Okay, just for this bit I'm going to do that. Now the only thing I haven't done after I've done the waistband and the zip is literally, it's telling me it's not going to like it. Yeah, no, I really need to change the bobbin so that the bottom of the trousers is the right colour. I can only apologise. Hi. Okay, so I've sewn my flap. And it's up to you. You can either iron it. I know, I'm so terrible. Or you can put a row of top stitches just on this curve. And yeah, it really depends how happy you are. You know, if you're a happy sewer, then sew. if you're a happy ironer, then iron. Okay, so I've got my raw edges at the top there, literally pushing my fingers in there, and there we are. So that's great. And you can either top stitch these, or we can top stitch them on. So give myself a little bit more to work with there, and just keep those hems nice. So yeah, just take time really, and it's a matter of pushing and pulling. So this is what we've got left. We have the garment here, and what we need to do is we need to sew this parallel to the zip so that it covers the zip. So easy enough. I am going to just put in a couple of top stitches just because life seems so hard. You know, we have things that we're happy doing, and we have things that we're not happy doing, and sometimes the fiddly bits are a bit unhappy for me. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to pin that back in. So I can then get it all under the machine, and I'm just literally lining it up. So that's grand. I might actually go around the top of it. Ugh. So all I'm doing is just getting this in place. Now I'm going to sew along the top here. Now even though the machine's foot was pretty much up, you've still got to move that lever. It just makes it connects the bobbin. So all I need to do is make sure that I'm not catching anything, and that this flap runs parallel. So I've given myself quite a lot, but never mind. And there we go. As long as it's straight. And a couple of reverse stitches. So that's that done. Okay, whilst I was off air, I did do one leg. And it's always the leg you go to pick up to do that's already been done. So standard, once, twice, just before the seam, foot down, have a little wiggle. Okay, just adjusting it every couple of inches or so, and away you go. Now, as long as the fold is correct, then it'll be straight. But, yeah, when I'm sewing, I may have said this to you before, I don't necessarily sew completely with my eyes. This machine especially, it says when it's going over too many layers of fabric, it sounds different. Sometimes you can literally hear it banging, and then I know that I've caught something up. But what I'm doing is I'm feeling this hem when I tuck it in, so that I know that everything's in its place. And then I do things like, oh, I pull that taut, so that I know that that seam's straight. So yes, it's not so much as a visual thing. There's a tactile and an audio component to sewing. So that's that. All I need to do now is have a look. I need to get a buttonhole there, and I still haven't hemmed that. I know. Which is just 4 stitches. I'm being lazy here. So let's get that sewn. Now when you're sewing a waistband button, I recommend quite a flat button in case you lean forward. You don't want it sort of digging in or anything. So I know. Take your button, measure your hole. You need the height of the button as well, and you need just an extra, probably 1/8 of an inch. Now you can use a buttonhole foot, it's really up to you. I tend not to. I do have a couple of tricks. Sometimes I use pencil to mark it if it's a colour that would show up, and sometimes I just leave it by the side. I know, but this is just me. So on this machine it's a 4, and then we go 2, 1, and then we go to 4 again. So I can see the line. I've got this bobbin thread that marks the beginning, and I'm going to do 4 again. Always make sure your needle's up when you change the stitch. And there we go. I can literally just steer it so that it doesn't go wrong. And what I said earlier about the noise, I can hear it when it goes over the different stitches. So that's fine. Double check. Don't worry if you have to go through it again. I have to sometimes. This machine's okay, but one of my machines, it doesn't seem to like the 3 too much. Just, yeah. So, place a pin there just so that you don't rip the rest of it, even though it's quite secure, and then we can just hand sew the button on. So, I know, don't think that suit trousers need to be needlessly complicated. I've gone for a very nice linen trousers here, and I've used an old pair of trousers as a pattern, so I know that it's going to be hunky-dory. Alright, well I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I hope it's inspired you to go and cut up your clothes. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee, and I do a daily blog. Alright, thank you ever so much for watching. Like, share and subscribe.